Hi, and welcome back, truth seekers and freedom fighters. You are at Essential Talks, where you stay for the conversation and you leave empowered. Today, we have a pioneer in uh, non-compliance of keeping his business open. He's the one that I look up to. He's been open far longer than I have, and going against a bunch of this nonsense. So we have Zach from A Foot Above, and he's going to kind of cap off or tell his whole story, how he got started, what got him in business, and then his whole journey through this whole nonsense. Take it away, Zach.
Okay, how it all started. It all started because I was a chubby, out of shape kid back prior to elementary. I was an antisocial kid in senior kindergarten. My mom took me out for 9 years leading up to high school and did homeschooling with me. I got really good at some of the book smarts, but I wasn't very social that way, as much as I did some stuff with other kids and blah, blah, blah. I started to go to university, or sorry, before that, in high school, I met a girl. She said, "Hey, I think you would look better if you lost a little bit of weight," which was a little disheartening. Yeah, exactly. Like rip it out and stomp on it. Um, and so I started to lose a bunch of weight, very unhealthy, in my dad's basement, doing pull-ups, push-ups. I didn't want to go to the YMCA because everybody was going to look at me, the quintessential beginner. I lost a bunch of weight by running 2 hours a day and eating almost nothing. And I kind of made a whole bunch of mistakes before learning, okay, what I should be eating and when should I be training. And then I finally made it into a YMCA and kind of got that ball rolling a little bit. While that happened, she, of course, broke up with me anyways. While that continued to happen, I then went to university. I went to Carleton for mechanical engineering and then switched my degree to computer science. So I have a fancy piece of paper on the wall that says I'm a really big nerd. And the whole while I was still teaching myself how to exercise, reading up on hypertrophy and how many sets and reps and how often should you be training and what should you be doing. Bodybuilding kind of always fascinated me. Lou Ferrigno and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all those guys, they felt like superhumans and I could never be on that level. And oh my God, I idolized them to an extreme degree. I ended up then working in fitness because I was doing some contract work. I was doing some like admin stuff on computers and I had a contract run up. So I ended up in a big box facility in between contracts. I had a buddy of mine who said, well, listen, like just come in. It's a bullshit job. You can quit it later anyways. Who cares? Just come sell memberships for a bit. And so I got my foot into a gym. I did membership sales for about 3 months and I hated it. There was a few people that like I felt like, okay, I'm changing their life and like, oh my God, this is their first step to the rest of their life. And that felt really good. But that was maybe one out of every 50 contracts that I would have somebody sign. And so I said, okay, well, this isn't it. I'll go find some other bullshit job while I find whatever contract I want in computers. And I had one of the regional managers who had heard my story. He saw some of my before and after photos. And he said, okay, well, listen, whoa, like before you quit fitness, maybe you're just not meant to be a sales guy and maybe you should be a personal trainer. And so I said, okay, well, I hadn't really thought of that. And that was a weird one for me because prior to going to university, my mom would ask me, okay, well, what do you want to do? And I used to say, I want to be a personal trainer. But I wasn't very good in biology. I couldn't like memorize all the terms as fast as I needed to for any of those lessons. And so I thought nothing of it. But I was really good at like mechanical stuff and I could do all the physics and numbers made sense to me. And so I told my mom, okay, well, I wanted to be a personal trainer and figured I'm never going to make money as a personal trainer. So I may as well get into engineering, be something that actually gets paid and give up on that. So whatever. So fast forward a bunch and I'm back in the gym and I then start as a personal trainer. That's got to be almost 10 years ago now. And I started out, I didn't really, like I knew how to do it for myself, but I didn't really know how to instill that onto other people. And so I started just kind of training others, kind of the way that I would train myself. I then started to like educate myself. I like paid out of pocket. I got some courses books. I started to like really get into it. Okay, it's not just my hobby anymore. Now this is like what I'm doing. So pour it all into that. I worked for about 3 years at that big box facility, and I started to brand myself. They used to tell me all the time that you were building your own business while you worked there. And so I said, okay, well, if I'm going to be my own business, I want to start attracting some clients and business to me. And so I need a logo and I need some t-shirts and I need some like branding. Started to brand myself. And then they started to tell me, okay, well, your contract says you're not allowed to make money outside of like doing it through us. Are you making any money on the t-shirts? I'm like, I'm making cost. I'm not trying to like become a t-shirt salesman here. I just want my logo on everybody's back. And they're like, well, those shirts don't have our logo on there too. And so we don't really know how to feel about that and blah, 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 blah. And that was when I instantly noticed, okay, there's a glass ceiling above me, big time. And I started to then try and get out, still do personal training, but get out of that big box environment. And what I wanted to do was be my own personal trainer. And I wanted to work out of somebody else's facility. I just wanted to pay rent, leave me alone. I'll find my clients. I wanted to brand myself anyways. Let me just be me, and I'm just going to borrow your space. I compared to like hair salons all the time. You just rent your chair. I wanted to do that. I looked around. I couldn't find anywhere like that. I found some gyms that would do flat rate rent, but it was a terrible gym. There was no change rooms or showers. It was in a dungeon. It just not somewhere you'd bring clients. And the flip side to that was that I could spend percentage of what I made to work in a very nice facility, the Anytime Fitnesses of the world. Great gym, somewhere you bring a client, but the more I worked, the more I would pay somebody, and that kind of didn't sit well with me. So I said, okay, if that doesn't exist, then maybe I'll just open my own little studio. I'll get like 1,000 square feet. I'll be my own boss. I'll pay lease and all that stuff and just take it on my own. That didn't make financial sense. I would have been losing just as much money to do that as I would have staying at the big box facility. And so I went back with my tail between my legs and I said, okay, well, I'm never going to get out. I can't do this on my own. I can't find a gym I want to be in. Woe is me. Went back, worked at that big box facility for another like year and a half before I ultimately got out of there. And there was actually a client, one of the other trainers, who heard that I wanted to get off of my own. And he approached me and said, hey, I have a space you might be interested. Like, why don't you come check this place out? So I did. Why not? Go kick a tire. And I walked into this building and like, it used to be a martial arts studio before I moved in. So it had change rooms, it had showers, it had all that stuff like done. And I walked in there and I was like, oh, there needs to be a gym in here. And so then I started to crunch all my numbers and the ball was really rolling. That was kind of the end of like 2017. I had done a couple bodybuilding shows that year. I got on stage. I got as lean as you can get as a human being. Did some of that. That felt like a good accomplishment. And now it's kind of time for more. And so I started to then look for equipment. I picked out some colors. I picked out all the stuff that I wanted inside of a gym. I laid the whole thing out and off to the races I went. I opened my doors June of 2018. Had a few clients. I had only 2 trainers who were working with me in the space at the time. And when I first opened that, like first month, I had a trainer who had originally agreed to come on board, back out on me like a week before I opened the doors. And so I remember vividly starting business like in a negative book of business. I was losing money right off the bat, as it usually goes with any small business, but this was an extra $2,000 a month I was behind. Then I was trying to reach out to everybody I could on social media. I was just Googling like East End personal trainer or Ottawa personal trainer or Orleans personal trainer. And anybody I saw, I sent a message off to and was like, hey, I have a new facility. It's gorgeous. I do flat rate rent. I'm not doing percentages. I used to work in a big box facility. I'm a disgruntled gym or a disgruntled personal trainer who wants to come be like me with me. And I had a few people sign up then. They then started to post on their social media. Then a couple other trainers saw that. So they came in and then the thing kind of really started to snowball. Things were going great. I mean, great. I got out of the red line within the first 9 months of having the gym open. I put 60 grand in my pocket, my second year of business, and then COVID hit. Then everything got really weird for me because one, I had gone from like, oh my God, life's going great. Like, my God, business is killing it. Absolutely fantastic. I had met a girl like November 2020. Everything. I signed for a new truck. Life was going great. And then like hard stop. I was very much, and I probably still am, I guess, of the mind that I think human beings are kind of due for something to like wipe a chunk of us out. And so when this first kind of started, that's what I thought this was. I was like, oh shit, if this is 2% mortality rate, like they're saying, this is the big one. Like lock your doors, hide out, do whatever you got to do. And so that's what I did. I closed my doors. I was like, whoa, like I don't want people dying, touching me. I don't want to die. Like, geez, lock the doors. I spent then from March, it was like March 16th, we closed down till I'm going to say about the end of April. And I spent that reading absolutely everything I could get my hands on. I am very much a type A person. I had a buddy of mine, he used to say that there are two types of people in this world. One, if you left them in a forest alone with an axe, they would sit down, cross their legs, cry, and wait for somebody to come rescue them. Or you'd have somebody sit them down in a forest with an axe, and they'll pick up the axe and just start chopping down trees because there's nothing else to do. I'm that guy. And so I sat around and I read every last number I could get. Like, how deadly is this? How many people are in there? Who's going into the hospitals? Like, all that data is still very like easy to find. You just got to look at. And I started to like aggregate some of that stuff. But like, even I'll admit it, from like the end of March until mid-April, like I was drinking almost every day, if not every day. I was smoking weed 7 days a week. There was one morning in there, like I rolled my first joint at 8 a.m. and I was like, just fuck today. I don't want to have today.
I've definitely been there.
It's like, I'm just going to try again tomorrow. So I super kissed bottom because like I was terrified. I was terrified of a virus. I was terrified that my way of life had suddenly gone up in smoke. My successful business was going tits up. All of it. It was all happening at once. By about the end of April, then it was like, okay, let's go like sneak into the gym and we'll just have a couple workouts. Me and my girlfriend, my fiance now. We'll go have a few workouts and like, that's it. So we started sneaking in. Then I started getting text messages from friends who were like, hey, so like, could I like rent some of your dumbbells or like, can I like borrow some of your equipment? And I was like, no, if it makes it out of the building, it's never going to make it back. Everybody wanted dumbbells. I was like, it's mine. I enjoy my workouts. Leave me alone. But then they started asking, they were like, okay, well, when do you go in for a workout? I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, like 2 p.m. They're like, okay, well, how much for me to just come while you work out? I'm not doing anything. The world's shut down. I'll show up whenever you want me to show up. I'm like, okay, well, like 2:00, park behind the building and we'll sneak in through the side door. And I was having then like speakeasy workouts from April until June or so. By June, then I had another trainer who had reached out to me and said, listen, I have clients who want a gym. They don't give a fuck. How do I get them in? I need a place to train. He's like, okay, whoa. He's like, I'll pay you. I'm like, okay, I can make some money and maybe pay rent. Excellent. He came in, started sneaking some of his clients in bright and early in the morning. I then started to bring back some of my clients. I had then some of my other trainers start to realize that I was in there again. They were like, okay, well, can I come in and do workouts? What if I have one client? Is that okay? And then that was when things kind of started to shift. And that I realized that there were a lot of people who it was more important for them to have a workout than whatever the like perceived amount of danger or risk there was. I'm certainly one of those. And And there were so many people who are like, my mental health needs it. My mental health needs it. I just need a lift. I just put a dumbbell in my hand. Like, I just can't be at home. I need this. And so I couldn't, in good conscience, say no to those people. So by June, I then had some trainers back in with their clients. Everybody was kind of ready to rock. I think we were officially allowed to open. It was like August or something like that. Because I told all my trainers, like, come in, train your clients in July. I don't care about rent. Everybody try and just put some money in your pockets. And then, like, rent will start again August 1st. I did it at a reduced rate for almost a year kind of thing. And it was more that, like, I recognized that all these other trainers were like me in that they were like, okay, well, both my and my clients' mental health need a gym. And not like training your basement, not do push-ups by a tree. Like, I need a gym. Like, okay, get in here. Anybody who wants in here, get in here. And that's been my mantra kind of since, is that, like, I'm not dragging anybody in by the hair. I have no gun to your head. You don't have to come train in the gym. But if you want to come train in the gym, we're doing it normally. And, like, I'm not having any of that shit. And it didn't take me long. It was far before June that I was like, well, I don't know that, like, masks, especially this, like, thing that, like, I pulled out of my pocket and I left in, like, the change bucket of my car. Like, I don't think that's really sanitary to begin with. And, like, okay, like, if this virus was, like, really that bad, like, wouldn't it be killing more people than, like, heart disease? And I was like, well, fuck, if this is, like, a respiratory illness, why can't I buy a cigarette? Like, if I have, like, COVID and then I smoke a cigarette, like, isn't that, like, the double whammy? Fuck, we should cut that out right away. And so it was that stuff. And they're like, well, we got to keep the LCBO open, because if there are people like alcoholics who are addicted to alcohol, if they didn't have the LCBO, then, like, what would those people do? And they tried it. They tried to, like, close the LCBO in the East End for like a day or something like that. It was like New Brunswick or PEI or something like that. Shut down the LCBO for 24 hours. And, like, it didn't work. The outcry was just like, no, we need our booze. And that stopped. I was like, okay, so wait, I can buy cigarettes, I can buy weed, I go to the LCBO, but fuck, don't go to a gym, because that's where the COVID is. And that was when I was like, oh, okay, like, this doesn't make sense anymore. If public health is about public health, then, like, they should be like, go to a gym. If you're gonna risk it anywhere, that's probably the place you should go risk it. And instead they started to talk about, like, it transmits well on surfaces and those fucking disgusting dumbbells and all those heavy breathers and blah, blah, blah. And so I rolled pretty smooth sailing from August until the end of October. That was then, we moved to, like, phase 2 or something like that. Phase 2 started because I was operating when I shouldn't be operating anyways. But then phase 2 started, and that was, like, when hair salons opened up and, like, personal services were allowed to operate, but not gyms. And that's when it kind of started to, like, get hairy, because I started to read some of the stuff that said, okay, well, if you're a personal service, then, like, you're by appointment only, which is what we do for personal training. It's usually one-on-one services, which is what we do for personal training. You have to wear protective equipment, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that shit doesn't do anything anyways. And so, like, all the guidelines that they had for a personal service was all stuff that I was doing in the gym anyways. So I looked at my business license. My business license says that I'm a personal trainer, not that I'm a gym. All my paperwork, my insurance documents, all that stuff say that I'm a personal trainer or a personal training facility. And so I was like, okay, well, by the law and the letter, I'm a personal service. I should be allowed to be open. So I posted on Instagram and I said, okay, here you go. Here's the legislation. Here's blah, 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 blah. Here's my body of evidence. Fuck you guys. We're open Monday. Come get a lift. And then I got, like, bylaws calls. I got, like, 10 calls the next day. I had hate on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. That started to fly. And then it was by about the end of November that, like, bylaws started to show up. They showed up twice. The first time, the guy snuck in behind a 14-year-old boy. We have a door with a keypad on it, and you got to, like, punch in your number to get in the building. And so the bylaws just kind of waited there patiently until a buddy punched in his number and then slipped in behind him. And then said, "Where are you operating in here?" Blah, 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 blah. There's like one personal trainer and one guy at the other end of the gym. It's 4,300 square feet. I have a massive facility. And he's like, "Well, you can't be operating." I'm like, "I'm a personal service. Here's my evidence. Like, do you want to see it?" He's like, "I don't care about your evidence," and starts writing me out a ticket. So I videotaped him and I was like, "Hey man, like how'd you get into the building? Like, cool that you're giving me a ticket, but like, how did you come in?" He's like, "Oh, somebody let me in." I'm like, "No, definitely not." I videotaped all that and then I posted that video. And I said, "Here's city bylaws doing their thing." And I have all of those posts way back on my Facebook wall. And then a lot of people are like, "Well, what the fuck's going on? That's crazy." Some people are like, "Good, fuck you. You're a gym anyways. You should be closed." But that like certainly put me on the radar. I had bylaws show up then the next weekend and the following day. They issued more tickets because I was operating. They issued a ticket to one of my trainers for not wearing a mask, even though he was sitting there eating. And they were just like handing out blue paperwork as much as they could. I said, "Okay, whatever." I videotaped all those interactions. I published those too. I said, "I'm not breaking any rules, or these rules are stupid, whatever. I'm going to keep operating. Come for a lift." That then kind of went on no problem until like, I guess it would have been after we locked down December 26th. Yeah, whenever we shut down again, then I started getting summons. Then they were giving me yellow paperwork instead of blue paperwork. And there was a video in there that they showed up to give me my first two summons. And that was the one that like went viral. There were 3 bylaws cruisers. There was 5 police cruisers. There was an army of people who showed up to the front door of my gym. And there's a video, like a 20-minute video of me standing calmly in the doorway, telling these people, like, "I don't want your services. I'm not interested. Whatever you do, I don't need an inspection. Thanks for offering. Get out of here." One of the bylaws tries to like walk his way past me. Like, "No, man, like, show me proof that you're allowed in here." I'm like, "Officer, do you have a warrant to come in?" "No." "Okay, then like, no, I'm not interested in any of your like services. I don't need the like inspection. Thanks for coming to offer, but I have rights." The best part of it was that one of the bylaws officers, I started to cite the Canadian Charter of Rights. I hadn't even learned about the Bill of Rights at that point. I just knew the basics. I was like, "Yeah, well, what about these rights and what about these rights? There's all in my charter. You took an oath of office, so you should be here standing for all of these things that I'm talking about." And he says it. He's like, "This has nothing to do about your charter rights, blah, blah, blah. We're here for an inspection." I'm like, no, this is everything to do with our rights, and I realize that. And so whatever. So the video then went viral. There were people in like Sweden and Denmark and Poland, every province in Canada. I got messages from everywhere. Like I would wake up in the morning and there was 100 messages, and I'd put my phone down. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed." Pick your phone up and there's another 100 messages. Crazy. That was absolutely crazy. And then it started to get really intense. Then they showed up again. They gave me another 3 summons. It would have been in January or so. And then they proceeded to try and file an injunction against me and give me a cease and desist letter. While all that was happening, once I like got my first round of tickets, I reached out to Rebel News. They had their I Will Open campaign, and I was the first business to sign up on their I Will Open campaign. I'm proud of it too. And they then put me in contact with their lawyer in the city. His name is David Anber. If you go watch his Twitter feed, he is one of us, and I love him for it. And so he's been handling all the bylaws stuff. Once Vera Etches wrote then a letter, it was like, "You, Zachary Boissonneau, at A Foot Above Fitness, located at 1290 Trim Road, Orleans, Ontario, you are to cease and desist all operations at A Foot Above Fitness." And that was when I was like, whoa. The KFC across the street from my gym is bumping. That place crushes it. Their drive-through is busy. I can go buy booze, I can go buy weed, I can go buy smokes. I can do whatever I want to do to hurt myself, but I can't go to a gym, even if it's for my mental health. Screw it. You should be working out in your basement or do a Zoom class, as if that's the same thing at all. And that's when I was like, okay, now it's personal. It says Zachary Boissonneau on the thing, like, you are to cease and desist. You, not all gyms, just you. And so I lawyered up. I lawyered up real hard on that one. That one was out of pocket. I reached out to Rebel News. They were like, this is like dealing with the Attorney General and the Crown and all that stuff. This is real court. This is not what we're willing to pay for. Like, okay, no problem. So I then paid out of pocket and started a GoFundMe that ended up paying more than I needed for this lawyer. And so I'm keeping the rest so that whenever I need the lawyer again, which I promise you I will, that'll be there as well. So we lawyered up. And as part of this closure order and the cease and desist letter, you have a right to a tribunal meeting within 14 days of it being written or something. So we reached out. We said, okay, we want that tribunal meeting. We want to have a talk about this. Come on. And so we had a few tribunal meetings, and we talked with some of the like public health officials or whatever. And we said, okay, well, we want to have a talk as to why any gyms are closed. You're cease and desisting me, but like I'm not the only one that you're telling to stop. And so I want to see the data that you used to justify keeping gyms closed while you keep other places open. And I swear to God, that shut them up real quick. You could hear them kind of skip a beat on the phone. And they were like, well, if we're going to produce all that data, like that's going to take a lot of like time and effort. And like, we're going to have a few more tribunal calls. And like, you know, Zach, like you're going to end up having to pay your lawyer a lot of money to like do this over and over again. And my lawyer, to his defense, I love him. He was the one who piped up. He's like, did we say something that didn't make sense? Like, we want the data. Like, we're here for data. Like, it's not about hours. It's not about whatever. Like, we want the data. And I was like, yeah, I hired a good one. Excellent. And so whatever. So they took 2 weeks. We were like, okay, well, we want to see full disclosure as to the information you used to close us down, blah, blah, blah. 2 weeks pass, and they give me a 2-page document that's then dates and times for all the bylaws phone number or phone calls that have been called against my business. Everybody who's like, hey, I hear there's a gym who's open, close that motherfucker. I got a list of all of those. That was it. There was no data.
No data.
There was nothing. There was nothing more than 2 pages of bylaws phone calls. And so we got back onto another tribunal meeting, and we're like, you said you'd give us disclosure. What the hell is this? Like, we want the data that you use to close down gyms through all of this pandemic. And they were like, well, you know, like this is going to be a lengthy trial and it'll take lots of time and discovery and you're going to pay your lawyer a whole lot of money. Like, don't you want to think about the money? And I'm same thing. It's like, we're here for the data. What the hell do you want? Like, go to work. Let's do this. Give me a court date. I'd like, fuck, why are we stopping? Give me whatever you want.
That's funny because with them utilizing, oh, it's going to cost you money. It's like, are you threatening me?
Oh, absolutely. It was like, are you sure you're in a sane mind and you're ready to like you know this is going to be expensive, right? Like
you're
trying to close my business and keep away my like possibility of making money. So like, who cares? Like, I'll throw more money at it. Fuck, just let's do this. I want to put me in front of a judge. And so,
such obvious bluff. It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely, it was lawyer speak as well as it could be. And then so that was while we then transitioned to phase 3. And so in phase 3, gyms were allowed to be open. And so as soon as phase 3 started, within 24 hours later, we get an email from whoever lawyer is representing Health Canada and Vera Edges, and they're dropping the cease and desist letter. They're dropping the class order. And so all the paperwork that they had given me that I had requested the tribunal meetings on, that stuff was then null and void. And there was then nothing for me to debate because the original order had been dropped. While that was going on, they applied for an injunction to force me to follow all the rules in whatever is the Reopening Ontario Act, blah, 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 blah. And so they got an injunction days before they dropped this thing. And the injunction basically says that I have to comply or face criminal contempt charges if I don't listen to all the rules that are in phase 3. And I have to post this thing on my outward facing door or something like that as part of paperwork that's now been dropped. So technically there's an injunction against me that says that I have to comply with all the rules of the Reopening Ontario Act. But I mean, that's not going to stop me anyways. I figure an injunction will put me in front of a judge sooner than later. So fuck it. So I'm still staying open. So I stay open. We open back up. Phase 3 happens. Things are rolling as well as could be. I've lost, over the course of all of that, I've lost probably 5 trainers. I've gained 2. I'm running at like 65 or 70% of what I was before COVID. I am paying rent. I'm not like rolling in money or anything like that. The business is positive. I would say my expenses monthly, my mortgage, that kind of stuff, that is negative. So like there is a finite amount of time that I can keep this going for. But fuck that. I don't really care. This is more about like getting people into a gym and just letting people train and whatever. So we keep going to the gym.
Zach?
Yeah, please.
What made you, because I assume that this was a benefit for you and your business with opening up under no gym membership and just based on personal training, one-on-one sessions, right? I assume through COVID that was probably a benefit to you, but what made you open up like that?
Okay, well, so the way that we operate is if you're seeing a personal trainer for one-on-one sessions at least twice a week, then you can come in without your trainer and use the gym whenever the hell you want as if you have a membership. But I don't sell a membership to just random people.
Got it.
And so I opened up like that because I hated having people who were in the big box facility that I was in who would come in and they just sit around and do nothing. And they were just, I'm going to say, deadbeats on weights kind of thing. They were in the gym. They do a set that wasn't heavy enough. They weren't pushing themselves. They either didn't know what they were doing or they just didn't want to do anything. Then there was personal training in this big box facility. And those were people who were like dedicated. They were about it. They would come in, do their lifting, get their training in with their trainer. They would come in, do their homework that their trainer gave them in the gym. But when they came in to do their homework, they were there to do their homework. And then they left and they were there for a workout. And so I wanted to essentially like take that idea and only that idea. I didn't want to be like a membership gym where there'd be random people, because I was it too. When I started going to a gym, I didn't want to go to a YMCA because everybody was going to be looking at me. And that is a common intimidation for a lot of people going into a gym. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And now I'm going to go hang out with a bunch of people who do know what they're doing. And I'm going to feel awkward about it. So that doesn't happen. And so, yes, that helped me because I had then a membership-based only facility to begin with. I had a door with a keypad on it. That's kind of helped to keep some little like riffraff out. And so that's been good to then call myself a personal service as well. But that was how I wanted to run my business before all of that. Moving forward has made it tricky in that I've had a lot of people who called and they were like, how much for a membership? I don't want a trainer. I just need a lift. Like, what do I do? And I've said no to a lot of those people. But at the same time, there have been people who are like, well, I'm glad that this is like a tighter community. There are a few people who are nervous about bigger box gyms and that there is lots of traffic. I don't have that. So there have been some people who are nervous of gyms who are still okay to come where I am. And then it's also been good to just keep it tight. I know that everybody's in there. Like the trainers who've stayed with me through COVID, they're on my team. The clients who are in there and they've stayed here throughout COVID, they're on the team. Like we are certainly more solidified than we ever were before. And it's been, I don't want to say good for business. I think it's that business has been better being vocal about it than it would have been if I had just been quiet. So I was having a talk, I'm going to say within a couple of weeks ago, that had I been like other gyms that have stayed open, they've just stayed quiet about it. They have their membership base and they're not like, I don't know whether they're doing well or not, or like, I don't know their situation too intricately. But I think had I stayed open, but stayed quiet about it, that I would have had some people come in, but I would not have had all the people who've come in who have. Because I did have people who reached out and they were like, fuck yeah, you're standing for your rights. Like I'm behind you. Like I know you won't sell me a membership, but like, yes. I had other people who reached out who were like, I want the full ride. You must be about it. If you're ready to stand up to like the bylaws and police officers because you think fitness is essential, like how do I train with you? I want to do that. And so I did have business that came about from taking as specific as a stance as I have that I don't think would have come had I just stayed quiet and open. And had I stayed compliant and closed, then I'd for sure be fucked. And so, so it was as best for my business as I think all of the options were over the last 20 months. So I'm thoroughly glad, especially having now seen what's happened in the last 20 months. I'm very happy that I stood up very early on in this. I'm very happy that I have been completely on one side. I'm happy too in that I've been in a very unique situation in that my mission prior to COVID was always to try and share all the mistakes that I had made through fitness and getting myself healthy. I wanted to impart that onto as many other people as I could before. And so like this hasn't been about money for me ever. And so it's been reassuring to then have other people they just need a gym. They just need to get in, and it's been very reaffirming in terms of what I'm about. Like this is health and fitness. This is people's mental health. This is my mental health. This is my clients' mental health. I have one of my clients who their therapist has written me a letter for whenever I make it to court that says that she would be scared for her client's life if she wasn't able to come train at my gym. Well, so that like, how am I supposed to close my business and think that maybe this client or somebody else who comes and trains in my gym and I don't even know what struggles they're dealing with, if one of those people ended up hanging in the closet because they couldn't go lift, then like I couldn't sleep at night. And so as much as all of the tyranny that has happened in the last 20 months, as much as all of that has happened, this has been really reassuring that like, you know what, like if there was ever a sword to die on, like this is the one. And there hasn't been a point in my life that I've felt so like about it. I don't know how else to describe it. This is who I am. This is what I do. I'm all in. This is my business. I'm not going to go work at like some government job. I'm not going to go be a consultant somewhere. I'm not going to go do something other than doing what I do now. And so like, yeah, I'm all in right to the end. Put me in front of a judge. I want anybody to answer me why a gym is not essential and like booze or cigarettes or weed or KFC is. And so until I get to have that, like that's become my new mission is that like, okay, well, I want somebody to answer. Like, what the hell? Like, you're trying to crush me. And I've only been trying to make people's lives better. I'm not a greasy salesman. It's not about trying to just cram as many people as I can through my doors. I did that at big box facilities. You had a number. It was like 2 or 3 membership sales per day. Was it. If you did more than that, good job. And if you didn't do that, what the fuck are you doing? You need to pick it up tomorrow. And so there was this like meat grinder that I was very much part of being in a big box facility. And so like, no, this is about people's health. This is not about money. So when they're like, well, aren't you going to spend more on your lawyer? Who fucking cares? It's just plastic anyways. That is not the like life affirming feeling that you get from somebody looking you in the eyes and being like, thank you for staying open. My mental health could not handle it if I didn't have a place to be. So I'm still open. I'm not about to fucking close. Nobody's worn a fucking mask since day one. I'm not going to ask for travel papers. I ain't no fucking Nazi. Leave me alone. And so I said that. I've said that every chance I can get my hands on. And the most recent interaction then, and to bring us kind of up to date, and I guess there's 2 things. One, I have an appearance January 27th for all of the bylaws infractions. I have nothing in terms of the Attorney General and all that stuff. There's nothing to be had. But all the bylaw stuff, I have an appearance January 27th to set dates for trial. And then I'm going to have a meeting with my lawyer that Rebel News hired me, David Amber. I'm going to have a meeting with him sometime after January 27th to figure out how we're going to go fucking chop them apart in court. I'm going to stay clear as day 2. I saw that like Arthur Pulowski and all those guys, they ended up with like a $10,000 fine, or it's like a $20,000 fine split between the two of them. Whatever. To take a plea deal. Whereas like, okay, well, you've got 6 summons. Like technically I have 6 summons against me, which face then up to a maximum of 6 years in jail or $600,000 in fines, is like if they maximally levied all of this on me. If I were to say, okay, well, I'll plead guilty and just take like a $5,000 fine and then everything goes away, that is an admission of guilt. So I'm going to make this perfectly fucking clear. I am not going to take a plea deal that in any way makes me guilty of whatever it is. They could be like, okay, we'll plead guilty and we'll just drop it all. Fuck no. So more to follow, I promise. And then the other update then is I had posted something on Instagram that said I'm anti-segregation. I will not be asking for paperwork. I'm never going to ask for paperwork. That's never going to change. Done. I had done a CTV interview probably a week before that. That same thing. They were like, well, as a gym owner, how do you feel about this new passport system that you're going to be implementing? And I was like, that I'm going to be implementing? No, like I don't believe in segregation and discrimination, and like I'm not here to turn anybody away who wants to go like deal with their health the way that they want. Like, don't you have a right to like choose your health care? What if me dealing with my health care is going into a gym? So no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. So the Ottawa Citizen did an article on me on that like one Instagram post. He did a little bit of an interview with me and then published like a hit piece. Like, look at this criminal defying more laws, and now he won't even ask for a passport and blah, blah, blah. He did, however, put the like one quote in there that I wanted him to put in that was like, I will never ask for papers and I won't discriminate ever. 24 hours later, which is now about 7 weeks ago, I had 2 bylaws officers show up right after the Ottawa Citizen article. And so I was in having a workout, and you can kind of see the parking lot from the gym floor. And I saw like one bylaw cruiser come in and then like another bylaw cruiser come in. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those days. Okay. So I put my jacket on. I walked out and I met them out in the parking lot before they made it into the building. And that was when I was like, oh, wait, these guys are human beings too. I talked to them and I walked up and I said, listen, guys, this is going to go one of 2 ways. Either I'm going to pull out my phone, we're going to videotape this, we're all going to become famous, and this is going to be a disaster for everyone. Or I'm going to shake your hand, I'm going to keep my phone in my pocket, and you can go tell your boss whatever your boss wants to hear so that you can leave me the fuck alone. And they were like, okay, well, listen, like, we don't want to be here either. I'm like, oh, okay. So then shake my hand and let's call it a day. And he's like, well, there's a lot of people in the parking lot right now. So like, let's just go in the front door. We'll look like we came and inspected you. And then we'll be on our way. It's like, okay, cool. So we get inside, we kind of walk up the stairs. They're talking about their Movati membership, and their gym membership is going terribly for them, and they've had enough. And they're like, there is no more COVID anywhere. One of them even said, he's like, COVID's over. Like, this is nothing to do anymore. And then he looks me in the eyes and he's like, okay, but so like, are you asking for a vaccine passport? And I looked at him like, he's like, oh, okay, sounds like you're compliant then. You have a good day and we'll be out of here. You're asking for vaccine passports right here. Is that the spot? Oh, okay, perfect. Excellent. Have a good day. And left. And so like, no, like looked him in the eyes. Like, no, I'm not asking for shit. But we had that silent agreement. He wrote whatever he needed to write. That was almost 2 months ago. I have not seen the bylaws officers since. I would have assumed had they marked me as non-compliant, then somebody would have come after me to try and have a discussion over my injunction. That hasn't happened. So I'm going to assume that the coast is clear until somebody watches this podcast and realizes that I've been doing it fraudulently, and we go from there. So no, I continue to not ask for passports. I'm not about to ask for passports. Fuck masks. Fuck all this shit. Nobody's died. I've had 0 cases. Nobody's gotten sick. I'm open.
Now, I'm going to correct you because you're not doing it fraudulently. they're fraudulently attacking you. So I want to kind of go through how many tickets and how many summons have you had in total? I know you're still dealing with them, but
So I've had. Well, so that was kind of a weird thing too. Is I've had 3 of the tickets. The tickets that were written by the guy who snuck in behind the 14-year-old. He wrote me like 3 tickets for $880 for various things or whatever. So I called the courthouse and I was like, I want to contest these tickets. What do I have to do to contest them? Blah, blah, blah. They took me through everything. They're like, okay, well, like call back in a few months just to make sure everything's good. I was like, okay. So I called back several months later and I was like, yeah, I have a bunch of like case numbers. I just like to check up on like the status of all these tickets and blah, blah, blah. And so I start rhyming them off and she takes all of them. And she's like, oh, well, like there's 3 here that are marked completed. I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? She's like, did you like pay any of these? I'm like, no, I didn't pay any of these. Are you kidding me? She's like, okay, well, they're marked as completed. She's like, you didn't come in for trial or anything like that? I'm like, no, I've done nothing. I plan to do nothing. Like, no, I've done nothing. She's like, okay, well, they're closed. So I don't know what to tell you. So I've had 5 tickets. I've had 5 pieces of blue paper. My fiance got one. One of my trainers got one. And then I have 6 summons that are on the yellow piece of paper that those are just like dates to appear kind of thing.
okay.
So the one for my trainer, I'm not worried about. The one for my fiance, I'm not worried about. The ones that I've like applied to contest, I still don't have a court date for any of those things. And so like in Canada, you have a right to due process. And so you have to have then a trial date within 18 months of the charge being written or it's inadmissible. It counts for murder. And so it's been more than a year now. I still don't have any trial dates. I fully expect that those are just going to disappear, and I'm not worried about the blue pieces of paper at all. And then the summons, like I said, I have an appearance January 27th to having a discussion over those, and then presumably have then some trial date, I assume 6 months later from then for all the summons.
And your order closed, was that a section 22?
Well, so they said it was a cease and desist order under Section 22, but it wasn't a Section 22 closure order. It was
That's odd.
It was a Section 9C or something like that closure order, but made under this Section 22. And so we got really excited when that happened because one of Adam Skelly's legal advisors at the time was like, oh, like you got the closure order like Adam got the closure order and nobody else has gotten a closure order like Adam. Everybody else has gotten a Section 22 and he got a Section 9. He's like, maybe we can smash your cases together because you both have a Section 9. And then they ended up dropping it before anything got fun.
Yeah, because most of the time when they're throwing the injunctions on people, they usually have a Section 9, and then they'll hammer down with the injunction as well. So, and that just drifted into limbo, eh?
Well, like I said, we kept grilling them. We're like, we want the data for gyms. Like, why are gyms deadly? And they're like, well, it's going to cost you a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. And then they dropped everything. Like the day after we moved to phase 3, it was less than 24 hours. My lawyer forwards me on an email and it was Health Canada, like dropping the class order and closure order against me. And so it was then what did he call it? He had a term for it. It was not of a live debate. And so there was nothing for me to like have a discussion over. He's like, we could file an appeal so we can go try and talk to them. But like, that's just going to get thrown out too, because there's nothing to have an argument over. So yes, all the Attorney General, the Crown, Public Health, all of that stuff, there exists nothing but like this injunction that's filed against nothing. And so, yeah, we're kind of just not thinking about that.
Wow, giant nothing burger. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Health Canada does not want to have a talk with me.
No, apparently not. I think you touched a nerve with them a little bit and might have spooked them a little bit, having to actually produce something to validate this insanity clown world. So
Exactly.
wow.
Were you always well versed or educated in the legal stuff? Like, what made you go the charter route rather than common law?
Well, okay, so when I first, like the first video that I had all the bylaws and all that stuff show up, no, I was not versed in law. I've only picked up whatever I've picked up in the last 20 months, but that's because I'm like super type A. Like I'll read studies and journal. Like I used to read like medical journals for fun before COVID. I did a bunch of that in university, and so like I know what I'm looking for, and like I feel comfortable with that stuff. So reading up on laws and that kind of stuff make a lot of sense to me. I went with the charter, I'm going to say initially, because that was kind of the only thing I knew. I thought that was the most important law in Canada. I was kind of learning as I went at the point that I really like stood on it. Then I learned about the Bill of Rights. That's a little bit more for the individual. It does not work very well for like corporation stuff. And so like I'm a Foot Above Fitness Inc. Or I should say me, I'm the person, blah, 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 blah. But I own a Foot Above Fitness Inc. And a Foot Above Fitness Inc. definitely runs on the charter because it's a business entity and it owns all my money and it's its own thing. I got into some of the common law stuff briefly. I was a guest on a Warrior Calls with that guy. I can't think of his name.
Christopher James.
That's the one. Thank you. Yeah, after that video came out that there was like 500,000 views and everybody saw it, he invited me on. I had a little bit of a talk. And then I had a really like, I'm going to say weird thing kind of happen very soon after Warrior Calls. And I don't think that they were associated, but it was just kind of perfect timing. I had somebody reach out to me. They sent me an email and they were like, I have some information to help you keep your business open, but I'm not going to share it digitally. Here's my address. I'm like, oh, fuck, you want to wear my skin? Okay. And so I could, my curiosity was piqued and I couldn't say no. And so I told a buddy of mine the address I was going to, and I was like, I'll text you back in 90 minutes from right now. And if you don't hear from me, then like, come fucking find me. I'm in a well. And I got in there and I met somebody who was part of a team of, I'm going to say researchers, and they sat me down for like, it was about 90 minutes actually. It was like an hour and a half lesson on the fragility of the legal system that we're in. And they talked about like, you don't need to pay property taxes. It's just something they ask you to do and you happen to cough it up. I'm like, oh, fuck. And they're like, look at this legislation. Look at this legislation. Look at this legislation. Pulled out document after document after document after document, would say something out of this world. I couldn't believe it. And then here, look at this, here, look at this, here, look at this, here, look at this. And so I talked to them about the common law stuff, and then like, well, it's signed with an I, colon, blah, 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 and only red ink or blood and all that stuff. And the advice that I was given was that like Christopher James had pushed some people to do common law for some of that stuff, and you don't hear about any of his like failure stories. And there's apparently a few people's lives that he's ruined by trying to push common law. And so like, I believe in common law in that it's a cool idea from way back when, but I've come to realize that like it matters more what the person holding the gun believes and like what system they're running underneath. And so I have yet to see any case law that common law has gotten somebody off of serious charges scot-free. I know that there's some people that run around without driver's licenses and stuff like that, and they're like free man on the land and they're sovereigns and all that good stuff. I think that you really can like divorce yourself from the government and do all that kind of stuff, which might have been interesting if I wasn't in like, I'm going to say a COVID situation. But I believe that there still exists enough, I'm going to just call it good in the world, in that whether you call it like the legal system or law or the charter or the bill, you can name it all whatever you want. And common law is big on like terms and using the right like I, and don't capitalize it in lowercase, and like there's a lot on that stuff as well. And so I think the language matters. And so I don't know whether you call it the charter or whether you call it like legal or law or common law or whatever you want to call it. I think it matters more what like collectively the people believe. And so whoever you're going to end up in front of as a judge then it's going to matter what they believe and whether or not they're on your side and how they feel about law and what like right and wrong. And it always boils down to what right and wrong is, whether it's under the judicial system or whether it's under common law or whatever. So that was the other thing too, is like I heard about like holding like common law courts and stuff like that, and that you can like get your own judge and all that stuff, but like there's no enforcing any of that stuff. And so like a lot of put people on notice and tell them, okay, well, if you for every minute it's worth 50,000 or whatever you want, that like that might then like wake people up and they're like, oh fuck, I gotta pay 50 grand for every minute I spend with this guy. Shit, this looks like a pretty legal document. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. Then it works. If it gets the person out of your lap and somebody's not bugging you, then it works. Whether or not it works to like actually collect on that $50,000 an hour, or to actually have like a common law court that then like pushes somebody to be compelled to pay that money, I'm pretty sure that hasn't happened in like several hundred years. So I'm certainly aware of all the common law stuff, but I certainly don't put all my eggs in one basket. But I totally, like I said, if you can produce a document that looks official enough to get whoever's in your face out of your face, then it works. So do whatever works. I think that we're in a point that like, I'm going to say we need to survive. You need to do whatever you need to do so that you can put food on the table, so that you can keep running your business, so that you can keep doing whatever you're doing. And whatever feels like it is getting you closer to that works.
Good answer.
That's a really good answer. Fair.
I'm just curious because I like to play devil's advocate a little bit, right? Yeah, and it's really great to see everybody's perspective and how it's all working for them. You commented that you're happy with Rebel News and you trust them. I've heard the opposite. I know people that are a little skeptical with Rebel News. So it's great to have these conversations.
Well, so that's actually, so yes, Rebel News. So it's David Menzies who like reached out to me after I applied to the thing, and I had a few phone calls with him, and like, don't get me wrong, I've heard the stories about Rebel News and like Ezra is part of the bar and therefore he's evil and all that shit, and he's another media source. And totally, listen, there are horrendous stories about me that are out there as well, and so like it comes part and parcel, if you will. Where was I going? Yeah, so I don't know, like Rebel News. So I've had a few people who talked about Roman Baber. He's been super vocal lately. He's been really on point lately. And so there have been a few people who've criticized him because like, well, if you're all about it, then well, like, why did people have to be vaccinated at the gathering that you had, or that kind of stuff? And there's been a lot of doubt as to the legitimacy of what he's standing for. And so he came to one of the like fundraiser events that I had at my gym during all of this stuff. I knew one of the people who was his close advisors, and she brought him to my event. And so I got to have a talk with him behind closed doors with nobody else around. And like, that was all I needed to hear, was that like, no, he's about it. I'm on his side 100%. If he makes some small foible in the in-between, I don't give a shit. My faith is with that guy big time, as much as he has then a bunch of bad stories that go along with him. And so my experience with Rebel News, as much as it is probably not the same experience for other people with Rebel News, has been a good one, because I got a bunch of summons. Rebel News said, okay, we're going to pay for those. And then I got more summons. And then I reached back out to Rebel News and I was like, okay, like, I'm picking up a lot of paperwork. Like, you guys said you'd be behind me for whatever, but like, now this is a lot of shit. Like, what are you going to do? And it didn't take them 24 hours. And they're like, no, like, we're covering you. Don't worry. You're taken care of. We're on your side. Yada, yada, yada. So I don't know. There's stories about everybody. The experience I have had with Rebel News has been good. The experience I've had with the lawyer that they hired me is good. So I can't fault them. They certainly haven't done anything wrong to me, but I've certainly heard stories. So
I have actually, I had, when I got my summons, I contacted Rebel News as well too, and they agreed to represent me. So I'm saying I'm happy so far. I love my lawyer.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm waiting for an email from him because my court date was today. I had it. It was back in, originally it was in, I think it was July, and they tried to tell me what I would get if I plead guilty. That it would be like $700 or something like that. Something stupid. And but that I could claim, I don't know, poverty basically, and get it reduced even lower. And I was like, no, like I'm not an admission of guilt. Like I didn't do anything wrong, so why am I going to admit to that and give them money? I'm not going to support their cause. And so anyway, so the idea was that they're going to reconvene at the end of September and go over what would happen if I didn't go with their whatever shenanigans. And so that didn't happen or something, and it was supposed to happen in November, and then it didn't again, and then it was put to today. And so I don't know. I'm waiting to see what this clown show is getting me this time. So I haven't heard from him yet, so I'm probably gonna send him an email later this evening and just say, hey, how did it go? So yeah, so just like I said, what a clown world. And so but yeah, my experience with Rebel News has been fine. I had no problems. I'm still waiting to hear about the tickets. Like green toilet paper. Like I'm never gonna come back around. Like come at me, bro. And so, but the summons really upset me because they came to my actual house or to my apartment and served me there. The police officers covered the eye hole with their thumb. It freaked me out. I didn't know who it was, and I was like, that's how hits happen. Like, I'm not going to answer this door. And so my husband came out in a towel and he just was beside himself. He hasn't felt the same about police since. It really ruined his faith in that. And I try to tell him, like, two bad apples doesn't equal the bunch. And he's just like, yeah, well, those bad apples are representing them pretty badly. So I don't know. So yeah, but anyways, so my experience with Rebel News was same. I so far so good. Yeah.
That gives me two thoughts. One about lawyers and one about police. About lawyers, I know that there has been much, I'm going to say, hate for lawyers, especially I'm going to say on our side of things, and that they represent the bar first and yada, yada, yada. I think that it's important for anybody who's watching this and might be fighting some sort of legal battle and you have a lawyer to understand that that lawyer has some amount of knowledge and that they work for you. So you need to point that lawyer in the direction that you want him to go. I've had lawyers before for other things in my life way back when, and same as a lawyer who I hired out of pocket to go fight the attorney general, who I loved on the phone in the health in the tribunal with the public health. He also said, he's like, well, are you sure you want to fight this? Like, my advice would be to just play this calmly, and so that might then turn somebody off of a lawyer because they're like, well, if this lawyer is really about freedom, then they would be fighting. Well, no, if that lawyer is a good lawyer, he's going to advise you to not break any laws. But I've also told my lawyer, you better buckle the fuck up because we're going to go do stuff. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to advise you against it, but whatever you want me to do is what you're paying me to do. And so, yes, lawyers, I think if we were to let lawyers run the world, we would be in a terrible spot, and that's not a good idea. And I think that anybody who's hired a lawyer, make sure that they work for you. It's your job to be on top of your case. You need to know when you have appointments and dates and all that stuff. Be present for whatever your court case is. Do not hand over the power of your business or your life or whatever to a lawyer. But you need to remember that the lawyer works for you. Oh yeah, they've made an oath to the bar and they are part of this system and they're not going to break the system and all that good stuff. But they work for you. Put them to work for you. Police. I have one of my clients who's with Auto Police, and there's actually a couple police who train in my gym as well. They face a different set of policies and being reprimanded for not following orders from their boss. They're kind of an in-between between military and civilian, in that they have a very strong hierarchy. And your orders are your orders. And so I asked one of my buddies with Auto Police, I was like, okay, so what happened if a police showed up because he was here to arrest me for breaching my injunction, but then he didn't arrest me? What would happen? He's like, he'd be in more trouble than you would. And so I get the cops are going to be the linchpin to all of this thing. It's just not bad enough yet for them to be ready to drop their guns and badges and stuff like that. but I'm going to say right now, at least in the city that I am in, I can say for an absolute fact that they are on our side, not against us.
Yep.
That's good.
And yeah, I can say that on my side as well. In the city I'm in, I know they're really trying to they're trying to do the right things, but it's like you said, they have higher ups that they have to listen to, and they're in a really tough spot. So it would be a real crap position to be in, right? So my hats are off to them as well because they've been standing strong, and I've had people tell me, well, the good guys should quit, and it's like no, because then we'd have all the bad apples, right? So we don't want that. The good guys need to hang on as long as they can because they're the ones that are trying to keep us safe. So they have to do some of the things they don't like to do, and we just got to recognize that. And I think with your stance in your videos, all your videos, I've seen them all, and the one that went viral, that one was pretty good, and actually is great. But the whole time that you were talking, and I made sure I did it myself, you were very calm, you were well spoken, you weren't swearing at them, you weren't telling them to go anywhere. You were working with them, you were being very accommodating. You weren't answering some of their questions, which you don't have to, and you were asking them more questions than they were asking you, which is fine as well. But you conducted yourself in a very proper, respectful, honorable manner, and that's what we all have to do. And that's how we kind of keep the peace. And then they know when they come back, they don't want to deal with us, but they know they're not going to have to escalate it. So, which is very important. So this is where we can maintain that control.
Yep,
So
that's a very good point. As soon as you get loud and angry, you lose
Yeah.
all of your credibility. And
Yeah.
I hate to say it, there are some people who are pro freedom who are not very good for the movement. And no, be civil. For God, we're still human beings at the end of all of this stuff. And so, yes, Jamie, you said it perfectly. Yes, anybody who wants to take a stand, know what you're talking about and do it as calmly as possible. As soon as you get loud, then you're just as fucking anti-vaxxer screaming.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to wrap it up on this note. But you do have some court cases coming up. So any of the things that you're going through, we want to get you back on and go through them. The one other thing I wanted to ask you, Zach, is have you actually read for the vaccine pass? Because I did read it right at the beginning, and it's not a regulation, it's not a mandate, it's a strong recommendation from the health board. So
and so you can still make your accommodation. So if somebody can't come in because they don't have their passport, okay, well my accommodation is come in anyways. And so there's a lot of gaping holes.
How do you enforce that? Because I read it. There was me and two other people, and we were going through on how to shred this whole thing. And by the time we were done reading it over, all three of us, our ribs were hurting. We were laughing so hard. We're like, what 6-year-old constructed this? Because they're telling you in one moment, collect data, but you can't collect data. You can't collect medical data because you're not qualified. You can't screen people unless it's a statute. It isn't a statute, it's a strong recommendation, but do it anyway. And then you're supposed to notify your clients properly notify your clients before they come. So I'm thinking, how does a restaurant properly notify somebody 24 hours before they show up? And then it says if you don't notify them, that you can write it on a card and have the notification that passes. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Right. But at the same point, right after it says all that, it's like, you can't do it because it's not a statute. And I'm like, but anyways, we'll leave it on that note. Thanks for coming on, Zach. We're going to have you back. We're going to get some updates. Let us know any other shenanigans you get into, because we know there's going to be more. I know what's coming to me. You know what's coming to you. Is just a given fact, right? So, but thanks for standing strong, brother, and we look forward to having you on with those updates. So,
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
excellent.
Yeah, just as a last kind of quick thing, just for anybody else that's has a business that's looking to want support and to just stand up for the rights and are empowered by Zach, like we all have been, myself especially too. You and Jamie, I gotta admit from the very beginning. Please sign up with We're All Essential. It's free. Lots of support, lots of resources, and if you like videos like this, continue to subscribe. That way you can make sure to catch Zach once we get another update on how things are going. But yes, on all the power to you. I again, just phenomenal story. I just absolutely love hearing hearing you talk. It's just, you're hilarious. So I really enjoyed that. That was fantastic. But yeah, so yeah, we'll see you. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Later.
Thanks,
Good
Zach.
night.
Bye.
Of course. Bye.